Algebra 2 Honors, Lesson 5-7, Completing the Square. Here are the lesson's objectives. Alright, first, let me give you the steps for completing the square. So when you want to complete the square, right, here are the steps. The first thing, alright, you want to get A and B on one side, alright, and C on the other. 2, alright, make sure, alright, A is positive 1, alright, make sure A is positive 1. And then step 3, what you do is you're going to complete the square. Right. So when you're completing the square, what you do is you take b divide by 2, right, and then you square it. Right. So whatever b is, divide by 2, and then you square it. And whatever value you get, that's what you add to both sides of the equal sign. Okay. So these are the steps to completing the square. All right. Now let's talk about when we would actually want to complete the square. Okay, when you get a problem that can't be factored, right, and you're trying to solve it, that's when you want to complete the square. Okay, so let's take a look at this problem right here. If we try and factor this, okay, if we try and factor this, all right, 1 times 5 is 5. All right, try and get negative 12. So if you try and use the x right here, all right, to factor it, all right, it doesn't work. All right, the only way to get 5 is 1 and 5, and we'll never get negative 12. So the x doesn't work. So in order to solve it, you could use completing the square or the quadratic formula. Okay. So let's complete the square here. So we want a and b. Remember these values here. This is a, this is b, and this is c. These values, we want a and b on one side together. So we'll minus 5 and minus 5. So we end up with x squared minus 12x, and I leave a space here, is equal to negative 5. And then the next step, you want to make sure a is positive 1. Is a positive 1? Yes. If once a is positive 1, we can move to completing the square. So when you complete the square, what you do is you take b, whatever b is, so b is negative 12 right now, right, negative 12. You divide it by 2, and then you square it. So negative 12 divided by 2, alright, gives you negative 6 squared, so that'll give you 36. Whatever this number is, that's what you add to both sides of the equal sign. So we're going to add 36 to both sides. Alright, so this is going to give us right here 31. And over here, once you complete the square, what happens is this becomes a perfect square trinomial. Okay, if you try and factor this now, alright, it'll be factorable. Alright, and what you're going to get is, alright, I kind of teach you a shortcut. You're always going to get the same binomial twice. Alright, whatever sign is in the middle here, alright, is going to be right here. Alright, how do you get x squared? Alright, well, that's going to be x times x. How do you get 36? Alright, well, that's going to be 6. So to get these numbers right here, what you're kind of doing is you're taking the square root, alright, of these values. Alright, the square root of x squared is x. The square root of 36 is 6. That's how you get these numbers here. And whatever sign is right here goes right here. If it's negative, this is negative. If this is positive, this is positive. Okay? So once you have this, in order to get the exponent to cancel, what you're going to need to do next is to square root both sides. Because the square root and the exponent will cancel, you'll be left with x minus 6 is equal to, since we square root both sides, we're going to have a positive and negative square root 31. You want to check to see if you could break this down. If you can't, go ahead and leave it alone. Alright, last step is to add 6 to both sides. So we get x is equal to 6 plus or minus the square root of 31. Alright, if these are not like terms, okay, you could stop here, alright, because you're not going to be able to combine like terms anyway. Okay, so this would be your answer. Okay. Alright, let's solve this by completing the square again. Okay, you always want to check the x first to see if it works. So let's just check the x real quick. So 36, and we're trying to get negative 8. So is there any way to get 36, or to multiply to get 36, and to combine to get negative 8? Well, no, that's not going to work. So if this doesn't work, either you have to complete the square or use the quadratic formula. Okay, erase this real quick. Alright, now, so first step, get a and b together on one side. So we're going to minus c. So we'll get x squared minus 8x. Leave a blank spot because we're going to add something to both sides. Is equal to negative 36. Now you want to check, is a positive 1? Yes, it is. So now you complete the square. So take whatever b is, negative 8, divided by 2, and then square it. So negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4 squared. So that'll give you positive 16. So we're going to add 16 to both sides. Alright. Now I always set up the parentheses. Whatever sign is in the middle is going to go here. Alright. How do you get this value? Square root this, you get this. Square root this, you get this. Alright. Combine like terms here. Whatever this is going to give us negative 20. Now we're going to square root both sides because we want to cancel out the exponent. Square root and the exponent kind of eliminate. We're left with x minus 4 is equal to, alright, now if we have a negative inside the square root, that means that we're going to have to deal with an I, right? So that's like I radical 20. Then you want to break down radical 20. Well, that's 4 times 5. Alright, the square root of 4 is 2. So we're going to get plus or minus, because we square rooted both sides, 2I radical 5. Then the last step, add 4 to both sides. Alright. Now be careful here. The 4 is not like terms with this. They're kind of separate. So your answer will be 4 plus or minus 2I radical 5. Okay, this doesn't become 6I radical 5. So be careful. Alright, so let's do a problem where A isn't, right, where A is not positive 1. Alright, so right here, remember we want A and B together on one side. So what I would do first here is I would minus 6x. Alright, so we're going to end up with 5x squared minus 6x is equal to 8. Now we can't complete the square yet. Alright, you have to be careful because this is not positive 1. If it's not positive 1, alright, you have to make it positive 1. So what can we do to make it positive 1? What we're going to do is we're going to divide by whatever this number is. So divide everything by 5. So that'll divide out. We'll end up with x squared minus 6 over 5x is equal to 8 over 5. Now we can complete the square. Alright, so when we complete the square, we take whatever b is. If b is a fraction, the b is a fraction. Negative 6 over 5. Then what do? We divide it by 2, and then we square it. Okay? Now, you guys have to remember now, 2 is the same thing as 2 over 1, because if we have a fraction and we're dividing by a number, this is the same thing as negative 6 over 5, right, times the reciprocal of the bottom, 1 over 2, right, squared. So these two are the same thing. So remember, dividing is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. Alright, so let's work this out right here. We're going to get negative 6 over 10. Reduce this. Alright, so this is going to reduce to negative 3 over 5. Alright, squared. So we're going to get 9 over 25. So we're adding 9 over 25 to both sides. So we're adding 9 over 25 to both sides. So we're adding 9 over 25. So over here, once you have this, alright, follow the same pattern. Set up the parentheses. Whatever sign is here goes in the middle. How do you get, alright, this value, square root this, you get x. How do you get this value right here? Kind of square root this. What's the square root of 9? That'll give you 3. What's the square root of 25? That'll give you 5. Okay? Is equal to, over here, get, alright, since we have fractions, get common denominator. So you're going to need to multiply by 5, because the common denominator would be 25. So we're going to get 40 plus 9. So we're going to get 49 over 25. And then to get rid of this exponent, we're going to need to square root both sides. Alright, square root and the exponent kind of eliminate. We're left with x. Let me write that a little bit better. We're left with x minus 3 over 5 is equal to, alright, we're going to have a plus or minus. Okay, then right here, what do we have? We're going to have 7 over 5. Then the last step, we're going to add 3 over 5 on both sides. Add 3 over 5. So this eliminates. So we're left with x is equal to 3 over 5 plus or minus 7 over 5. Now you have to be careful. You can't stop here because these are like terms. Alright, so you have to split this up into two solutions. First, we're going to have x is equal to 3 over 5 plus 7 over 5. And then we're also going to have x is equal to 3 over 5 minus a 7 over 5. Alright, go ahead and finish simplifying this. So we'll get 10 over 5. So one solution will be 2. And the other one, we're going to get negative 4 over 5. Alright, can't simplify anymore. So this is our second solution. Okay?